Hi, welcome back to findthebestcarprice.com. I'm Steve, and in this video we will be looking at the new federal tax credit for EVs, the new credit, the used credit, and how you can calculate your potential savings. So let's dive in. So first things first, everything you see in this video and more will be explained in our article on findthebestcarprice.com. You can find the link to that up above if your links are working, or down in the description and the comments if not. So don't hesitate if you have any questions to jump on over there. You can also use our Facebook group to ask questions. That link is also down in the description and the comments below. So the first thing to note is that these are the rules for 2023 and onwards. So we're looking at the current rules that have been updated, and we will keep that resource on the website up to date for you. So if there's anything in this video that doesn't seem clear, make sure you go to the website. Everything will be up to date right there. So first thing we'll look at is the new tax credit. It is still $7,500 as it was in the old system, but now it comes with some caveats, so only certain models can qualify. So let's start with the income caps. You can only qualify for the EV tax credit if your annual gross income is below a certain level. So for the new federal EV tax credit, that's going to be $300,000 for married couples filing jointly, $225,000 for heads of household, and $150,000 for all other filers. So if your income is above that, you're automatically not going to be able to receive this tax credit. We'll have to look for others, maybe in your state level, or some other rebates that are available locally. On the used side, the income caps are essentially just half of that, so $150,000 for married couples filing jointly, $112,500 for heads of household, and $75,000 for all other filers. So again, if you are above those levels for new or used EV tax credit, you will not qualify, but below that you should be good, and you can go and dig into all of the other possibilities as to whether your model that you're looking at qualifies. So that's what we'll get on to next. So if you're below those income thresholds, the next factor that comes into play is the price of the vehicle. So for a new vehicle, for trucks and SUVs, the price cap on that is $80,000, and for other vehicles, cars, that kind of thing, it is $55,000. So models below that will be entered into the consideration for the federal tax credit. Now there's a lot of other things there, and that's where you get into the tax calculator, just to make sure that the make and model that you're looking at does meet some of the requirements, which include sourcing qualifications for battery components, final assembly in North America, a bunch of different criteria that are beyond the remit of this video, but if you use that tax calculator, you will be able to figure out whether or not the model that you're looking for qualifies. On the used side, to get that credit of $4,000 or up to $4,000, you're looking at a much simpler calculation. Basically, if the sale price of the vehicle is below $25,000, then you're in the mix for qualifying for that used EV tax credit. There are some other questions there that we'll get onto in a sec, but first and foremost, you want that vehicle that you're looking at, the used EV, to be below $25,000 in price. So for a new vehicle to be considered, there's quite a few stipulations there. So we'll go through some of them here, but I would urge you to go to that calculator to test different makes and models, because that will be the final deciding factor. We've factored in all of the different qualifying issues and whether or not it applies to that make and model. So some of the qualifying factors for that new federal tax credit include the vehicle must be assembled in North America, must be a plug-in vehicle, charged from an external source, that is, must have a battery pack of 7 kilowatt hours or more. That's pretty much every EV that's out there, full EV, but some plug-in hybrid electric vehicles into that as well. It needs to be for use on US roads, which is fairly self-explanatory. And then there are a whole load of things around the battery components and the sourcing for the minerals that go into the battery, which again is a complicated factor that comes from the IRS directly, and that's where we've put the calculator up there to help with that. To remember the timing of your search, maybe even a month later could be a very different picture depending on the IRS guidance and how those sourcing requirements play out. But this calculator gives you a really good starting point to find out if a vehicle that you're interested in qualifies just at this moment in time. On the used side, there are also several questions you'll have to answer there in the tax credit calculator. First and foremost, we've talked about the income levels that you need to be beneath, and the sale price of the vehicle does need to be below $25,000, as we've said. Must also have a gross vehicle weight rating of below 14,000 pounds. That is most vehicles at the moment that would be available for a used EV. It needs to be sold through a licensed dealership. This is how they're maintaining quality control over some of these sales of used EVs. The used EV can only claim this used tax credit once, so at the moment that's a very new thing. There's unlikely to have been very many used EVs that have already had it claimed, but as we go further into the lifetime of this tax credit for used electric vehicles, there's a good chance that a previous owner may have claimed that on their previous purchase, so you'll need to make sure with the dealership at the time whether or not that owner did claim that. It only applies to those with a battery pack of 7 kilowatt hours or more. Still applies to plug-in hybrid electric vehicles if they meet that criteria. The used EV credit applies to vehicles that are purchased after January 1st, 2023, so we're all going to qualify there. But the vehicle does need to be of a model year 2 years before you're buying it, so for 2023, 2021 model years and before qualify. As we move into 2024, 2022 model years will come into the market for used electric vehicles and they will qualify, and so on and so forth. So again, all of those questions can be answered on the tax calculator, and you'll see whether the model you're looking at as a used EV purchase actually qualifies for this tax credit or not. The used EV tax credit is up to $4,000 for vehicles $25,000 or less. It is $4,000 or 30% of the vehicle price, whichever is lower, and that break-even point happens at $13,333. So at the time of recording, there's not a whole lot of used EVs that would fall below that, but if it is below the $13,333 mark, you're going to get 30% of the sale price back in a tax credit rather than the full $4,000. Everything over that $13,333 does add up to $4,000 anyway, and you'll still be getting the full credit if you qualify. So the key disclaimer in a lot of these things is if you qualify, remember at the moment and in the current ways the rules are handled in 2023, the tax credit is taken off of your tax burden. So you do need to owe enough in taxes in that next tax year that you'll be claiming this tax credit to actually offset the balance. So for example, if you owe $3,500 and you qualify for a full $4,000 EV tax credit, you can only take up to that $3,500 in the tax credit because that's what you owe. You should also note that everything we've discussed here has been for vehicle purchases. There are some vagaries around leasing a vehicle, which means that you actually can access some of that tax credit or all of it, depending on whether the dealership is willing to pass it on to you. In some cases, manufacturers are using that lease solution to pass the savings on to the customer for vehicles that don't qualify. That's going to be something that changes along the way, so we won't get into it too much here. Just know that if you are leasing a vehicle, there are potentially ways to get into that tax credit that the dealership will get as the buying entity, and you'll just need to work that out with the dealer or the manufacturer, depending on how they're structuring their lease deals at the time of buying. So that's an overview and some of the requirements of the new federal tax credit for new and used EV purchases. As I mentioned, all of this is available at findthebestcarprice.com with the links in the description and at the end here, so make sure you check that out. And we do also have our EV 101 Facebook group for any follow-up questions. Thanks for watching. Hope this was useful. Remember to visit www.findthebestcarprice.com/EV for all your electric vehicle buyer's guides and articles, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks a lot.